I started in the pits when men still wore jackets to the floor, and handshakes meant more than contracts. I've watched 100 men work themselves half to death trading. Early mornings, late nights, charts spread across every surface of their desk. And most of them ended up broke. Not because they were lazy, Lord no. These were some of the hardest working men I ever knew. They were broke because they confused motion with progress. They thought the market kept score the same way a boss does. It doesn't. The market has never once cared how many hours you put in. I learned that lesson the hard way in the early days, like most do. I used to think if I read every ticker tape, tracked every rumor coming off the floor, stayed longer than everyone else, that I'd earn an edge. And maybe for a season it felt that way. But the market has a way of humbling men who think effort alone is enough. I started watching the traders who actually made money, not the ones who looked the busiest, but the ones who lasted. And I noticed something that took me years to admit out loud. They were quieter, more patient. They didn't trade every move. They waited for the one move that made sense to them, and then they moved with conviction. There was a man I knew back in the 40s. I won't give his name, but he came in every morning, sat down, drank his coffee, read the tape slowly, and most days he did nothing, just watched. New traders would laugh at him, thought he was lazy, thought he'd lost his nerve. Then he'd make one trade, one, and walk away up more than the rest of them made in a week of frantic buying and selling. They called him lucky. He wasn't lucky. He was right. And being right in this business is entirely different from being busy. See, busyness in trading is seductive. It feels like discipline. It looks like hard work. You're doing something. You're active. You're engaged. You're in the game. But the market doesn't grade you on participation. Every trade you make that isn't grounded in a real edge isn't neutral. It costs you. It costs you capital. It costs you mental clarity. It costs you the patience you'll need when the right trade finally shows up. The man who trades 50 times a week looking for the winner has usually spent the winner before it arrives. I watched this play out decade after decade. After the crash, after the war years, into the boom times of the 50s and 60s. The men who lasted weren't the ones who worked the hardest. They were the ones who understood what they were good at, knew the conditions where they had an advantage, and waited, sometimes painfully, for those conditions to appear. They had edge, not effort, edge. Now, I'm not saying you don't need to put in the work to find your edge. You do. You study. You sit with the charts. You understand what you're trading and why it moves. That work matters. But once that work is done, it goes quiet. The studying is preparation. The trading is execution. And execution, real execution, is mostly waiting. It's sitting on your hands when the conditions aren't right. It's watching the market churn and feeling the itch to do something and choosing not to. That discipline, the discipline of inaction, is harder than anything you'll do on a busy day of trading, and it is worth more. The young men coming into the pits always wanted to prove something. And I understand it. I was one of them. But the market isn't impressed by your ambition. It doesn't reward your hunger. It doesn't care that you need the money, or that you've been watching this level for 3 days, or that you've got a family depending on you. The market only responds to one thing: being right. And being right more than you're wrong by enough of a margin over time. That's it. That's the whole game. So here's what the old traders knew that the young ones always had to learn the slow way. There is no prize for most trades placed. There's no trophy for the longest hours. The only number that matters is the one in your account at the end of the year. And that number grows fastest not when you're doing the most, but when you're doing the right thing at the right time, and nothing at all the rest of the time. Work hard to build your edge. Then, let the edge do the work. That's the lesson the markets have been teaching since long before I ever stepped onto a floor. And they'll be teaching it long after I'm gone.